السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما واجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. نسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما بعده ونعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما بعده. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a blessed gathering. I know it's a virtual gathering, but I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless it and make us of those who listen and follow the best of what they listen to. Welcome to our Zakat discussion, inshallah Azza wa Jal. I was debating with myself whether I should just go extensively and cover everything that we need to know about Zakah. As the title says, everything that you need to know about Zakah, every little aspect, or should we just focus on some guidelines and overview of the most important and basic and relevant aspects of Zakah, and then allow room for Q&A. I'm thinking maybe I should be proactive and just answer the questions before they're even answered and just speak the whole time, or just allow room for questions. And to my surprise, and that's what threw us off and delayed us, as soon as we opened our questions platform that we have for you, which is online questions, as soon as I opened that, I realized that there were questions already being asked there, some of them being repeated multiple times. Obviously, the top concern, the number one concern is about 401k and my position on it. So it looks like we may need more time to discuss different things and maybe elaborate on them. So I'll try to, inshallah ta'ala, summarize my talk or my presentation to the minimum, just introductory, very basic refreshers or reminders, inshallah ta'ala. First of all, my dear brothers and sisters, one of the most important elements of any of these discussions that we have about any of these acts of worship. By the way, am I supposed to look at that camera or this camera? This one here. Okay. So one of the most important elements that we need to bring up is the attitude, the importance of making sure that we have the right attitude. Are we treating the religion itself as a burden and as something that brings us hardship, or is it really a privilege, and is it a ni'mah or a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is very important to be said, especially when it comes to salah or even fasting, as well as zakat, because it involves a level of sacrifice and we have to basically contribute something back. But remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and we belong to Allah, and He created us to worship Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We, in everything that we possess and own, we say own and possess, and I put that, like relatively speaking, everything that we possess and we own actually belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. All of the blessings that we have are all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. When Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran extended an invitation to the Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim, look at their attitude. Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah has purchased from the believers back their lives or their souls and their wealth, بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ, and they get Jannah in return. Some of the Sahaba came to the Prophet and they said, Messenger of Allah, أَنفُسًا هُوَ خَالِقُهَا. He created these bodies and these souls, and He granted us the life. وَأَمْوَالٌ هُوَ رَازِقُهَا. He's the one that also provided and He gave us. Yes, we earned some of it, or it came to us, but at the end of the day, the effort, the energy, the focus, the knowledge, the opportunity for us to earn living in and of itself are all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can take it in a heartbeat. He can take it subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. We seek refuge in Allah Azza wa Jal from min zawali ni'matihi, from the departure or from the loss of His ni'mah upon us. And we know that one of the ways that actually, one of the violations or that lead to one losing a blessing from Allah or a privilege that is given to him from Allah is not being thankful or grateful and not fulfilling the haqq of Allah, the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the rights of others with regards to that. So with with a level of humility and appreciation, of the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also with the right attitude, we have to approach these topics of fiqh of ibadat, the acts of worship. We have to come with inshallah, the attitude or the desire and the intention of knowing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from us, and to do our best in that. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah to the best of your abilities. So we're here to do this. There are some ahadith that may have weakness, that a time will come where people basically these are reports or narrations that talk about the miserable state of the ummah, where people are going to change their attitude towards some of these practices and teachings and tenets of our religion, where people are going to, for instance, one of them says that people are going to consider zakat maghram. They will look at zakat as a penalty, as a burden, right? And instead of looking at it as a maghnam, and instead of looking at it as a gain and a way to purify their wealth. So to begin with, let's begin with the word zakat itself, the word that Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen in the Quran, and His Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam emphasized in his Sunnah. The term itself that was used to describe this act of actually taking money, right, charity, and giving it to specific recipients. This act of giving some of your wealth, a small portion of your wealth, and giving it away to its appropriate recipients in a specific fashion at a specific time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls this zakat, and the word itself, right, is cognate to a word in Arabic that actually means, zakat actually means growth. It means increase, an-nama wa ziyada, increase and growth. You're actually taking something, you're taking a portion and you're giving it away, but Allah Azza wa Jal calls that act, right, refers to it as with a word or a term that actually means increase and growth. It also, zakah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Tazkiyah is also cognate, tazkiyah comes from the same root word, right? Which means, and Allah says, مَا زَكَّى مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ. None of you would have been able to purify themselves if it wasn't for Allah. So this purification also, self-purification, is called tazkiyah. So zakah also means to purify. So here is a word, here's an act that again involves taking a portion of your wealth and giving it away, and Allah refers to it with a term that means purification. So two things we need to keep in mind. Zakah means to grow or to increase and to purify. And the scholars said that actually that's exactly what the zakat does to your wealth and your money and your property, and it does, more importantly, it does that also to your soul and your nafs, right? So we have to keep that, and Allah Azza wa Jalla refers to it in the Quran also sometimes as zakah and sometimes as sadaqah. The words zakah and sadaqah in the Quran are actually used interchangeably. So it's basically zakah is a specific type of charity paid out. It's to be given out, a specific amount taken out of a specific type of wealth and properties and given to a specific group of recipients, right? What is very unique about zakah is that one is one of the pillars of Islam. As a matter of fact, zakah is always mentioned in conjunction with salah. Allah Azza wa Jal always praises the believers and describes the believers as the ones that aqamu salah wa atu zakah. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned that in the Quran numerous times. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he waged war against the apostatized tribes, that he said, لَأُقَاتِلَنَّ مَنْ فَرَّقَ بَيْنَ الصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. I will indeed fight those people who want to separate or want to look at zakah differently from salah. Salah and zakah, they're looked at the same level. They are of the 5 pillars of Islam. A person who does not accept and does not who does deny zakah is not considered to be a Muslim by our scholars. So we need to keep in mind that zakah and delivering zakah, giving zakah, is a very, it's one of the essential and one of the important practices in the life of a believer. Zakah is an obligation upon a Muslim that possesses the nisab, right? It's an obligation upon a Muslim that possesses the nisab and for a whole lunar year, right? So there are we explained there are certain terms that we need to, inshallah ta'ala, remember, right? One is you will hear a lot, zakah, and we explained what zakah means linguistically and technically. Number two, nisab. Nisab means quantum. It's the threshold, the minimum amount of wealth in a specific type of properties that you must have in order for you to be liable, right? For you to be liable to zakah. If you have less than that amount, if you have less than the quantum, less than the nisab, then you are not obligated. There's no zakah to be paid. You're not liable. And the third term that we also need to remember is hawl. You're going to read this in books. Hawl basically means a year, right? A year, a physical year. And it varies from the, based on the type of property we're dealing with. When it comes to crops, basically the cutoff time for that is when the harvest season comes, which again, depending on what it is, the type of crops, it could happen once or twice a year, or more than that. But here we're dealing with gold, silver, currency. That's what basically, or even stocks and different options and and commodities. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to be talking about livestock and other things. If we have any people who are listening or tuning in that need to know about zakah that pertains to these other types of businesses and properties that they own, inshallah, you can contact me or you can contact your local religious authorities, inshallah ta'ala, to get your questions answered. Our focus is going to be, inshallah, on currency, jewelry, and stocks or 401k and this these type of properties that people own, because that is what is most relevant to the majority of our audience and community members, inshallah ta'ala. So nisab, again, is the minimum, people call it minimum amount, quantum, or actually the threshold that you have to have. Hawl, again, means Islamically, the physical year is based on two things. One, on the lunar calendar, the lunar year. Two, it is based on the day you possess the nisab, the day you have the quantum, right? So let's say that you had no money. You absolutely had no money, and on Ramadan, on the first of Ramadan, you received amount of money that actually reaches the nisab, the quantum. And we're going to explain what the quantum or the nisab is, how it's calculated. So let's say you have that amount in your possession, and that amount, so from the day you have it, from the first Ramadan, first of 1441 this year, you have a whole year until the first of Ramadan of next year with this amount being in your possession. If the amount of wealth that you have goes below the nisab, below the quantum at any point during this year, then the hawl is interrupted. You are not liable to zakah. If it goes back to the nisab, then you restart again. Your hawl has to basically be started again, right? So the condition is that you must possess that nisab or more, right, for a whole year without this wealth going below it at any point. Also, the nisab, this quantum has, when it comes to currency, gold and silver, you have to calculate the whole amount. You don't look at each one of these, currencies, especially if you have, nowadays we have people who have crypto coins and currencies. all of this is added up. All of this, you just look at it all as, you look at the dollar amount of all of that you calculated, and if it reaches the nisab, which we will explain inshallah ta'ala in a few seconds, then you must pay zakat on this at the end of the lunar year from the moment you owned that nisab or more. How is the nisab or the quantum calculated? Who is a person that basically possesses a nisab? During the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the currency that was used was gold and silver, right? Dinar was made of gold, dirham was made of silver, right? Dinar and silver, during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the amount of dinar that you must have, 20 or more, that was the nisab, would now be calculated. It would be valued in today's matrix that we have into approximately 3 ounces of gold or 85 grams of gold, right? So if you have 85 grams of gold or more, then you have to pay zakat on that if you possess that amount for a whole year, for a whole lunar year. With silver, it is 200 dirham, which is now equivalent to 595 grams of pure silver, right? Now, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it's very important to mention this because this is key. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, 20 dinars were equivalent to 200 dirhams in terms of value, right? But the price of gold and silver varies, changes, right? The gold at some point became, I learned, subhanAllah, that gold at some point became less valuable than silver because silver became very precious and rare. But in today's, nowadays, obviously there's a huge difference between the price of gold and the price of silver, right? So gold is not equal to the amount of silver, like 10 times the amount of silver. It's actually much more than that, right? So when you calculate the nisab, now contemporary scholars have this not dilemma, but they have these two different opinions. Do we base the nisab on the price of gold or the price of silver? And there are some who say, no, you base it on the price of silver, especially the ahnaf. So if you have what is equivalent to the price of 595 grams of silver, then you have the nisab. You possess the threshold or the quantum on which you have to pay zakat. That is going to come to, when I did a calculation just a minute ago, the price of silver right now is 50 cents a gram of silver. So times 595 comes to about $300. If you have $297.50 today, if you have had that amount for a whole year since last year, and let's say today is your hawl, your cutoff date, today is when you pay zakah, then you have to pay zakah on anything more than $297, right? For those who say, no, we base it on the gold value, then obviously it's a huge difference. It's about 4,700 or more. So if you possess less than, according to the scholars who say that you base it on the value of the gold, if you have total amount of money, liquid assets and gold and silver that is below 4,700, then you don't owe zakah. But if it's more than that, then you owe zakah. That's the general idea. I hope I didn't confuse you with that, insha'Allah ta'ala. So how do you calculate your zakat? You look at your, by the way, the same thing applies to any options or any possessions that you have that are liable to zakat, like stocks. So you look at the dollar amount, whatever it's worth today, and if that amount is more than the nisab, then you have to pay zakah. But if you have multiple properties, you own different things. You have silver, you have some gold, and you have coin, you have crypto coins, cryptocurrency, and you have cash in your savings, right? You add all of that up, and obviously if that reaches the nisab, right, the quantum, then you pay zakah on all of that. And what you pay is 2.5% of that amount that you've had for a whole year, right? So the zakah cycle. So the zakah cycle is called hawl. So this is what I have to say, and inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to just stop right here. There's a lot of information that I want to share with you, but I'm going to stop right here and respond to the questions because I think that is what matters the most. So inshallah, we'll begin with the question, what is your opinion? People are asking me, what is your opinion on 401k? If rules say money can be withdrawn only in case of financial hardship and one does not have hardship situation, are we still obligated to pay zakah? طيب. Having said that zakah hopefully is not treated as a penalty and that we have positive attitude, we have to remember this, my dear brothers and sisters. There is a haqq, there is a right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dictated in the wealth that Allah Azza wa Jal has given us, right? There is this unspoken, but it's actually spoken if you think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us wealth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enriched us. And as Muslims who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand that this rizq came from Allah Azza wa Jal, we realize that this wealth that we have, there are people who have haqq in it. They have a right to it. That includes people that we have to basically support financially. We're not doing them a favor. We're not doing our children a favor. We're not giving them, it is, in a way, metaphorically speaking, a form of sadaqah. Allah will reward you for whatever you earn and you spend on your family, but you can't hold that as a favor on them. You're not doing them a favor. That is their haqq, that is their right. Your children, your parents, if they need your financial support, right? Your wife, I'm not going to say spouse, no, your wife, brothers. You have to basically spend on her. You're not doing her a favor, right? So these are huquq. They have a right to a portion of your earning to satisfy their basic needs, to take care of their basic needs. Also, the ones that we always neglect or forget about because they don't live with us are the fuqara and the masakeen. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned 8 categories of recipients that are qualified to receive zakat. Not only are they qualified, but zakah is actually their haqq. Allah Azza wa Jal said in Surah At-Tawbah, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. Fuqara are those people who are broke, completely have nothing, right? وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and those people who have some wealth but they do not have enough. What they earn or their income is below their basic necessities and needs. So they're running short. They don't have enough. والفقراء إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها, and the people who are employed to collect zakah collectors, basically. They can be paid from, or they should be paid from what they collect because they're processing zakah. والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم, then a special category of people, right? Newly, people who accepted Islam, who may be going through either emotional or social or even financial hardship. They're also qualified recipients of zakah. والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب, and also to free slaves, which is not something, this particular category is not applicable to, in most of the parts of the world. We no longer have slaves that need to be freed. وفي الرقاب والغارمين, and people who have high amounts of debts that they no longer can pay, and may be at the risk of being prosecuted or being charged. So people who don't have the ability to pay back their debts. والغارمين وفي سبيل الله, في سبيل الله, to support the armed forces, or to support the defense of the Muslim community or the Muslim nation. وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. And the wayfarer. This is a category again that, subhanAllah, very unique in Islam, that we care for someone who was stranded, a traveler, or they call it wayfarer, someone who got stuck somewhere. Let's say someone came into town, and then because of the corona situation, now they can't travel anymore. They're on lockdown. They run out of cash. They run out of money to spend. They have nothing. So the community, these people can be given from zakah if they're zakah eligible. And the reason, by the way, one of the elements that disqualify a person from being eligible is, again, if it's your descendants or if it's your ancestor, if it's your parent or your grandparents, right? Also, the family of the Prophet ﷺ, people who belong to the family of the Prophet ﷺ, they are not supposed to be receiving zakah, because zakah is that portion of our wealth that we are trying to get rid of, right? We're trying to detox and purify our wealth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored Al-Muhammad, the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Ahlul Bayt, from being zakat recipients. So having said that, people, fuqara, and the people who belong to these categories have haqq to this wealth, right? That 2.5% of the extra amount that is beyond beyond what we need on an annual basis, right? So you take care of everything that you need to take care of. You live whatever kind of lifestyle you want to live. The extra amount of money that you had for a whole year, 2.5% of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated to one of or all of the 8 categories. That belongs to them, and it's your responsibility to deliver that wealth to them, right? So having said that, the question is, with regards to 401k, do you own that money or not? The money there, is it yours or not? Is it in your name or not? If you own that money and you have access to it, right, then you have to pay zakah on it, right? If you don't own that money is not yours. It's not vested, right? If whatever arrangement you have is something that you will only be given at a certain time, at a later time, then whenever you receive it, you have to pay zakah. My understanding is 401k is something that you can access, right? If you want to, you can access it. So with regards to that, you have 3 opinions. The opinion of the minority, the small minority, is that you don't owe zakah on it because you can't access it or there's hardship in accessing it, which the vast majority of fiqh councils and scholars do not agree with. This is, and I am I'm in disagreement with that. To say that someone that has $1 million in their 401k, this wealthy person basically who is living a comfortable life, right, has nothing. I mean, you owe taxes and you owe other things, but you don't owe, subhanallah, zakah on it. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And by the way, if you look at it, for those people who say 401k, you don't pay zakah. Because why? Because that money is being managed by someone else, right? And you're actually getting some tax benefits because you're not paying taxes on it. But at the same time, if someone opts out and invests his $1 million on his own in some sort of stock market, let's say someone is doing their own, they're managing their own stocks, to say that that person is not only does that person lose tax benefits, that person actually owes 2.5% of the total or the current value of their stocks. To say that this person is liable, but this other person who's doing 401k is not, this doesn't make any sense to me. So that opinion is to me rejected. The second opinion is that you owe zakat on the total amount of your 401k. And again, that is the opinion of some contemporary scholars, some, not most. And it sounds very, to me it sounds very appealing and very convincing. However, it doesn't sound to be fair or accurate. I think the opinion that I adhere to, the opinion of many of our scholars, the vast majority of the scholars are of the opinion that your 401k, whatever you end up with, if you were to cash it or liquidate it, or if you were to access it today, whatever you're going to end up with, meaning you know, you take out the penalty, the 10% penalty. You take out whatever taxes you may owe, capital gain tax, whatever you may owe, the 62% or 60% of it that you're going to end up with if you were to cash it today, or if you were to die today, your heirs or your beneficiaries are going to receive, right? Whatever amount that will come to, you owe 2.5% on it. You owe 2.5% on that amount, and Allah knows best. Someone might say, okay, how am I going to be able to pay that if I have $1 million in my, if I have 1 point something, if I'm going to end up with $1 million, right? If I was to cash it today, that's $25,000. So we tell people, please, do proper financial planning, inshallah ta'ala, ahead of time. Remember that just like we plan to pay our taxes on time, and we plan ahead of time, and we put whatever we put, and we aside to be able to afford paying our taxes if we're going to end up owing something at the end of the year. We need to do the same thing with zakah. Haqqullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the haqq of Allah and the haqq of the fuqara. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, لِكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. I mean, the government is benefiting from the 401k plans. The corporations are benefiting. You're benefiting. The only one who's not going to be benefiting if we say that you don't owe zakah are the fuqara, the poor, the most vulnerable. And by the way, just sorry, I hope, inshallah, I don't get myself in trouble, and I hope that I am not going to offend anyone. It just amazes me how some people are willing to vote for Bernie Sanders, but they argue against paying zakat on 401k. MashaAllah. So, anyways. I hope I answered that question. Okay, how do you calculate zakat on precious stones, just like diamond and okay, precious stones, as precious and as expensive as they may be, they're not zakatable, for a lack of a better term. Meaning you don't have to pay zakah on any amount of diamond or precious stones that you own, unless you're actually you're a merchant and you're a jeweler that actually this is your business. You buy and sell diamond or precious stones. Then that's a different story. But if you have your wedding ring and you have your whatever jewelry you're into, and you're wearing these things, or even if you're not wearing it, you don't pay zakat on the precious stones. What you pay zakat on is gold and silver, the pure gold and silver of your jewelry. Speaking of jewelry, I'm sure that someone asked this question. Okay, my opinion on jewelry is the following, and I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides me to give the best answer, inshaAllah ta'ala. But ma adinu Allah bihi, what I personally practice and enjoin upon the female members of my household is that if you have jewelry, again, the opinions of whether you have to pay zakah on jewelry or not are well known in the books of fiqh, the differences of opinions amongst the various madhab. If you have jewelry that you are actually using on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis or on special occasions that happen every year, you're using it, then that jewelry, sisters, I want you to pay attention. You don't have to pay zakah on it, but if you choose to pay zakah on it, it's better for you. You don't have to pay zakah on that. The jewelry, however, that you don't wear on a regular basis, or that you are saving for a rainy day, or that you have in a safe box somewhere locked up, or the jewelry and the gold coins that you will never wear, that you will never use, it was given to you as a gift. It's out of style. It's an excessive amount that you have. It's sitting there. You're waiting to pass it on to your daughter or to your daughter-in-law in the future. That gold and silver is liable to zakah. You have to pay zakah on that, and you have to pay it every year, right? Do you have to pay zakah from it itself? Do you have to take a piece from it and give it away? No, you don't. You can pay cash, an equivalent amount to whatever zakah is due on it. You can pay it. Where that money comes from, that is, up to you. Whether you want to pay from your own, savings, if you have any savings, or you want to pay from whatever allowance, cash allowance you have, or whatever earning you have, if you are working and you have your own income, or you want to take from your husband, that's fine. Or as I said yesterday to the sisters, or you want to sell one of these pieces to your husband, and you want to take cash from him to give as zakah, then be it, inshallah. Send your zakah to the masjid, and the masjid will handle your zakah on your behalf. And maybe if your husband is nice enough, he's going to come on the day of Eid and give it back to you as a gift, inshallah. Inshallah ta'ala. How do you calculate zakah on the jewelry itself? The pure amount of gold, 24 karat. If you have 21 or 18, like most people do, or 20 or 22, then there are websites that have, that you can basically put the weight of your gold, right? The net weight of your gold, you put it there, and it will calculate based on the current gold price. So the current gold price is 1,700. That's per ounce. Per ounce, it's per gram, it's $56.02 per gram. So if you have 100 grams of gold, then this times 100. Then what you have is worth 5,600. That doesn't mean that it's like if you go to the market and sell it that you're going to get that much money. You may get that much, you may get more or less. It depends on how desirable that piece that you have is, and most of the time it may not be worth that much. But the current, if your jewelry was to be melted and it was to become pure gold, this is what it's worth. 5,000, if you have 100 grams of it, 5,000 pure gold, 24 karat, $5,600, dollars, right? So you take 2.5% of that and you give that as zakah. 2.5% out of every $1,000 is $25, right? So 25 times 5, 125, and then another maybe a couple of dollars or $1 from that. So that's what you owe. You write a check for that amount, $127, and that is your zakah on the 100 gram of gold, right? And Allah knows best. And if you have it in an ounce, obviously the price of an ounce of gold is $1,742.33. So if you have 5 ounces of it, you basically do the math, multiply that by 5, the 5 ounces of pure gold that you have. If you have 21 karat or 22 or 18, then there are websites that basically you put the weight of it and the type of gold that you have, or the carat of the gold that you have, and it will tell you what it's worth and how much zakah you owe on it. Is there any time limit? Is there any time limit to, let's say you calculated zakah. Let's say your zakah is due today, right? Today is what? 24th of Ramadan? 24th. Right. My cutoff day, my hawl begins on, just to make it convenient. Most people actually they use the month of Ramadan because you can easily track it. So a lot of people have their zakah day, or their cutoff day is the 27th of Ramadan. Some people it's the 21st. Some people it's the 1st of Ramadan. I go by the 25th of Ramadan. This is just my choice. So when that day comes, your zakah has to come out of your possession, right? Out of your account. You have to, hand it over to someone, send it, mail it to the masjid, give it to the masjid, right? Whoever the person who basically handles your zakah. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about who should be handling your zakah, but zakah is your responsibility. Give it to the most trustworthy entity or organization to process it for you and deliver it to its appropriate recipients. So it has to come out of your possession as soon as possible. You have to deliver it as soon as possible. Now let's say you calculated it, you're about to give it away, but something happened on that day, you couldn't do it, that's fine. You can do it a day later, 2 days later, but there has to be a valid excuse for you delaying, giving your zakah. Can you do it in advance? Yes, you can. You can do it in advance, right? But you cannot delay it. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. Like you're supposed to deliver it as soon as possible, just like we have to pray as soon as we physically can. So you're supposed to pay your zakat on time and deliver it to its recipients as soon as possible. How do you deliver it to its recipients? By the way, that money belongs to them. You have to basically transfer ownership to them, and then you let them decide how they want to spend it, right? So you have to give them the cash or whatever wealth that they can actually use, but you need to give it to them in a form that they can use at their discretion. You can't make that decision. You can't say, well, I'm going to give my zakah in a form of vouchers. I'm going to give my zakah in a form of basically clothing or gift cards. Or, I'm going to, tell them, or I'm going to make them go and purchase, or I'm going to purchase something and give it to them, and that's the zakah. You can't do that. You let the faqir or the recipient, right, decide how they want to spend that. You give them ownership of it, right? And then they decide how they want to spend it. The only, I think, exception that would be made is if it's gold and silver. Now, obviously, you're not going to go give them gold and silver. You can basically give them the equivalent amount of money, to the value of that, to the current value of that gold and silver, and let them decide. If they want to buy gold and silver with it, it's up to them. If they want to spend it on their basic necessities, it's up to them. It's up to them what they want to do with it. Okay. Can you pay zakat? This is a very important question. Can you pay our zakat in these countries to help operating our beloved masajid? Okay, I don't want to get myself in trouble, right? Not necessarily with the masjid, but I'm very reluctant to say that non-profit organizations that are not taking the money to give it to one of these 8 recipients, right? That are not doing that are zakat eligible. And again, this is not the mainstream, I don't want to say mainstream, but most contemporary scholars are of the opinion that Islamic organizations, Islamic schools, people who are doing da'wah work, they put all of that under the category of fi sabilillah. I'm very, very reluctant personally to really consider, all of that. I mean, some of my colleagues, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them, they consider some major, let's say, centers that are doing multiple work, that are doing a lot of work in various areas that are benefiting a wide range of people. They're doing da'wah work, they're doing charity work, they're doing relief work. They are definitely, according to them, they are eligible to receive zakat. I personally, my advice that I give to our center, to my previous center, is that you may use 1 out of 8 the categories to cover some of your expenses, but I do not believe that centers should or that you should give your entire zakah for the operational cost of an Islamic organization. I think that is totally wrong. That is at the expense of the needy and the homeless and the poor of the Muslim community, of the local Muslim community. And I don't think that is right, morally right, or I think, to be quite honest, religiously also. I believe that, yes, 12.5% can be kept. 12.5% of the collected zakah can be kept by the organization that is actually processing zakah, because they're considered al-amilin alayha, right? That is my opinion. I'm very reluctant about the stretching the definition of fi sabilillah to cover some of the work that we're doing. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Again, my respected teachers and mashayikh and scholars are of that opinion, but I am not comfortable. People are asking me for my own personal opinion. I am not comfortable, but again, there is valid opinion out there that many of these organizations are eligible for zakat, and Allah knows best. So to give it to them to process it, I don't see anything wrong with that. To process it for you. But to keep it all to themselves, I have serious issues with that, right? So if you know, so this is an answer, if you know an organization that you trust that distributes, oh, I have to tell you this, by the way. The Prophet ﷺ, this is the Shafi'i school of fiqh as well as other madahib as well. I think it's the Ahnaf that believe, that allow the zakat to be transferred. If I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, or don't hold me responsible for this. But the Prophet ﷺ says, "تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ تُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ." The money is collected from the wealthy of the community and is distributed amongst the needy of the community. I believe that zakat is supposed to be distributed locally. That you're not supposed to transfer or send your zakah overseas, all of it. Right? You're not supposed to be like distributing somewhere else. Who's going to take care? Every country and every locality should have, wealthy people in their local area that are fulfilling their responsibility. Whereas our responsibility is towards those people where we're earning here. We're making money here off this local community of ours, right? Whether you're a business owner or you're some sort of professional, right? Your wealth is generated from the population that lives in this area. The poor people within this population have right to the excess amount that we have, the saving that we have. So the zakah has to be distributed locally. It can only be transferred under dire needs or situations, like specific situations. But this cannot be the general rule. Some people always, they send their zakah somewhere else all the time. They don't do anything locally. That's not right. So if your masjid has a designated body or fund or committee that are processing zakah properly, then you hand it over to them and it becomes their amana, it becomes their responsibility. You have fulfilled your part and they process it for you and they deliver it to its local, to its appropriate and deserving local recipients, insha'Allah ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. I take out zakat money in Ramadan and pay over the year to people in need. Is this fine? Actually, this is not the best practice. You're supposed to take your zakat and distribute it right away. All of it. Shouldn't keep any of it. Right? Now, if you're saying that you're processing your own zakat, you're not handing it over to someone to do it on your behalf. To me, the best thing is just to be on the safe side. If there is a trustworthy entity, right, you hand it to them and let them take care of it. This is how it used to be. Even during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was obviously sponsored by what would be considered the state or the government. But now we don't have a government that basically processes zakah, right? The centers, the local centers and masajid, assume basically that role. And they're supposed to take this as an amana and do a good job and make sure that they do it properly. So you hand over that, it's put in a special fund and it's distributed over the year based on the local needs, but you have fulfilled your job. But to say that, no, I'm going to keep it and I'm going to give out as, at my own discretion whenever I have the opportunity, that could be an issue, my dear brothers and sisters. Especially, you run the risk of you losing it. You run the risk of you, something happening to you, and then your heirs or whoever is going to collect that money, not being able to tell, what belongs to, So if you're managing your own zakah and you're doing a good job, and then it's up to you. But I advise against it. My advice is that if you have it, give it all away at once to a trustworthy entity and let them process it for you. This is what I do. This is what I advise my family members to do. And this is, I think, the best practice, and Allah knows best. Who is eligible for zakat? I mentioned the 8 categories. I think I answered this question, meaning to who and to what we give zakat money. As I said, there are 8 categories of recipients that are qualified to receive zakat. Zakat is their haqq, right? Now, if you're asking who should I give the actual money to, I say give it to the masjid. If your local masjid, again, major center, is, and that's why, by the way, I say we have to be aware of the financial practices of our centers and nonprofit organizations, right? So you give it to your local authority, whoever you trust with your Salat al-Eid, with your Zakat al-Fitr, which, by the way, is khalas. Now you can start giving Zakat al-Fitr, which is $10, which is different from Zakat al-Mal. It's $10 per person on your house, in your household, right? This is for fasting. This is an expiation for any of the mistakes or any of the sins that we committed while fasting in the month of Ramadan. We calculate it as $10 per person within your household here locally. So if you have 5 members in your family, that's Zakatul Fitr or Fitra. That is a separate, fund. But just like you trust your local masjid with it, and that's what you give it, who you give it to basically distribute it on your behalf. And just like you basically come to your local masjid for your salawat and for salat al-jum'ah and for your marriages and for, if you have, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid and protect our families, for your divorces or for your fatwa, if you trust a particular entity for your deen, why, and also if we have Hajj seminar or have Hajj programs, you join your local community. Same thing when it comes to zakah, you should be able to also trust them with your zakah and give it to them and let them handle it for you on your behalf, and then you can go inshallah ta'ala comfortably at peace with serenity to sleep, and then they process your zakah for you inshallah. If I received gold last June after Ramadan 2019 and I haven't had it in my possession for a year, do I need to pay zakah for it now as 1 year completes in June? Okay, remember what we said, you have to basically go off the lunar calendar. From 1 June to another, that's based on the solar. The Gregorian calendar goes by the solar year. And the solar year is about 10 and a half days. What is it? 10 and a quarter, almost 11 days. Right, let's just say 11 days. It's about 11 days longer, right? So if you're going to go off that, then what you do is, let's say you got it June 1st of last year. You got it on June 1st, or let's say, just for the sake, you got it on June 15th of last year, right? So you become liable to, you have to pay zakah. Zakah becomes due about 11 days before that, or 10 and a quarter days before that, right? So you have to pay zakah. If you received it on June 15th, then you have to pay your zakah by June 5th. The 5th of June of this year, you have to pay your zakat on that money. If you do it now in Ramadan, that's fine. You can do it in advance, but you shouldn't delay it. You should not go past June 5th, inshallah. If my current savings is what I have built in the last year, do I pay zakat? I don't quite understand what this means. In other words, if you're saying that you had 0 last year, let's say last Ramadan, you had nothing. And then you started saving money since last Ramadan. And then by now, let's say you have $10,000. You were able to save from last Ramadan until this Ramadan $10,000, right? Do you have to pay zakat on it? I hope that if this is the scenario, then there are differences of opinions on how to pay zakat. You still have to pay zakat, but how to pay zakat, or how to calculate your zakat. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. The correct opinion is that your year begins the minute you reach, whatever you're saving reaches the quantum or the nisab. So if you go based on silver value, the day you put $300 in your account, or the day your balance in your saving account reached $300, that is the beginning of your hawl, your year. Your annual cycle begins then. So a lunar year later from that day if you still have 300 or more, whatever that amount is, and we're saying now that it reached $10,000 in this hypothetical scenario of ours, then you pay zakah on that, 2.5% on the whole amount, right? If at some point, let's say your wealth reached $1,000, and then it dipped back to 200, if you go based on silver. If you go based on gold value, then it's currently $4,700. So the day your money reached $4,700, the day it reached that, your cycle begins. You start counting a year from that. I hope this made it very clear, inshallah, with all these numbers and conditions. But I really urge my community members to reach out, inshallah ta'ala. You can call me, you can book an appointment if you have a special circumstance or special situation that you discuss. I think zakat it's so important that we need to give. So open line of communication, you need to seek fatwa, you need to make sure that you're doing it right, you're calculating it right, and that you're processing it right. Inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you. So please reach out. Again, my phone number is what is it? Safe, sorry. Abu Yunus. Sorry, 901. It's 901-444-0. Okay. Sorry. You know, sometimes I have to dial it myself. So inshallah, I'll get it for you. Abu Layth. عندك اكسس للفيسبوك تبعنا؟ اوكي، موجود على الصفحه تبعتي، موجود البزنس كارد. Okay, forgive me. All right, here's the number, everyone: 901-444-0833 extension 104. Again, that is area code 901-444-0833 extension 104. Inshallah ta'ala, starting tomorrow for the next 3 days, I'll be available inshallah ta'ala after 4 p.m. Central Standard Time for an hour. Just open line inshallah for you to call me if you have any specific questions regarding zakat or zakatul fitr, or even regarding any of the issues related to fasting. Okay, now when it comes to the wealth of an orphan or a minor, if you have a minor who has money, and you are the guardian or the administrator, the person basically taking care of the affairs of this person, do you owe zakat? That money is not yours, right? That money belongs to this child or this minor, and you're managing it for them. And the person is not baligh. Do you pay zakat on that? There are two opinions on that, right? The opinion of the Shafi'iyya is that zakat is owed on the money itself. Allah Azza wa Jal says, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً, from their wealth. So the standard of the jumhur, of the majority of the scholars, is that yes, and that the guardian or the person in charge of the wealth of that individual is supposed to pay zakah on their wealth. And that's why they recommend that person does not just keep the money, but actually try to invest the money and allow it to grow so that zakat does not deplete it, right? So they're supposed to invest it for them, or find safe, secure ways to invest the money so that it would grow, all right, in order for them to be able, and also pay zakat. And zakat is a form of spiritually purifying the wealth of a person to grow, right? My understanding is, again, I'm not an expert or I haven't studied, I've just read the Hanafi school of fiqh, is that if it's a minor is not liable to zakah, and Allah knows best. The majority of the opinion, and wallahu ta'ala alam, the stronger opinion, and to be on the safe side, is that yes, you pay zakah if that money reaches the nisab, the quantum. If it's more than $4,700, then you pay zakah on it, 2.5% of that amount, and you should find safe, secure ways to actually grow that wealth. So the zakat that you pay is out of that. Do you owe zakat on this? Yes. Now, if you have an amana that let's say I gave you something and I told you, you keep it for me, right? You don't pay zakat on that. That doesn't belong to you. You don't have possession of it. If that's a question, then no, you don't pay zakat on that, right? I am responsible for that. So if I come to you, or if you come to me, let's say put it the other way around. You come to me and you say, here, Sheikh, I want you to save this $10,000 for me. Hold on to it. I'm supposed to keep it. I'm supposed to hold it and save it for you. I don't pay zakah on it. You're responsible for the zakah of that money. You're supposed to pay zakah on that money. You can call me and say, oh, by the way, can you take 2.5% out of that and pay for to zakah out of it? You can, right? But I don't, just because it's in my possession. I don't own it. I don't have ownership of it. I'm just keeping it. I'm guarding it. I'm saving it. Just like your bank. Your bank, when you put money in your saving account, your bank is not responsible to pay the zakah on it. You're supposed to pay the zakah on it, right? You take it out of it, you take it from other funds or other, liquid or cash that you have at home. It doesn't matter where you get the money from, but that money that is staying there as an amana with someone, you're responsible for it. The owner is responsible, not the keeper. Okay, if you purchase a house for a rental income, an investment, other than your own primary home, you have rental properties that you basically rent. Do we owe zakat on the down payment for this investment, as the rest will be financed? No, you don't. You don't owe any zakat on your rental property's value, if it's a rental property, right? So if you have a house or a shopping center that you're actually renting, right, and that property has a market value, whether you whatever you own of that value, whether you're making payments or let's say you own it, let's say you paid off that and you have $1 million worth of properties that you're renting, you don't pay zakat on the $1 million. You pay zakat on the collected rent that you collect, whatever of that rent that you collect and wealth you accumulate from that, the basically return that you get from it, you pay zakat on that, right? If you have it for a whole year. So let's say you collect money from a rental property, but whatever you collect actually you end up paying as payments. So you don't end up having anything. Yes, your property is growing in terms of maybe it's appreciating, but you actually don't have anything. So I have a house. Let's say I have a house. I don't, but let's say I have a house that I'm renting. Whatever rent I'm collecting, I'm actually paying that. It's my payment. It's my mortgage payment or whatever it is, right? Then I do not have anything to pay zakat on, right? I hope that answers the question. Okay, someone said, I get salary on a regular basis on the 27th of Ramadan. I check whatever I have, right? And I pay zakat on that whole amount. Barakallah fi. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Is that practice correct? It's right. I mean, you don't have to do that, but it's right. In other words, what I'm saying is you can look, if you there are some people who say, listen, I don't want to, like for instance, there's a sister today told me that she doesn't want to go and weigh the stones separately in her jewelry and weigh this separately and separate everything. She just weighs everything together, right? and let's say it's 20, and then she calculates the value of the whole amount. She knows that she's paying extra. She's like, just to be on the safe side and to make it easier for me. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consider the extra amount that I'm paying as sadaqah. Jazahallahu khayran. May Allah accept from her, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her. You're giving more than you have to give, right? So, however, if someone says that, no, what I do is I actually have a retirement fund. I look at the net amount that I would get that day. I calculate that, right? The net amount. I also have a saving account. I look at whatever I have in my saving account, account. I add that up to the whole, to that. I also look at my checking account, and I see that, I have, alhamdulillah, I've been able to maintain a balance above the, even if it's not above the threshold, by the way. Even if it's not above the nisab, you still add it up to the total amount. I also look at my jewelry or whatever, I owe zakat on, right? And I add the value of all of that together, and then you add up all of that. You calculate all of that, 2.5% out of that, you're done, right? Of course, obviously, minus whatever is due. So let's say you have payments that are due, that you have to pay. Rent or mortgage payment or whatever, credit card payments, or whatever payments you have that are due, you can always, or you have taxes that are due, so you can always detect, you can take that out, right? You consider that in your calculation, right? So let's say if I have right now a total amount of, let's say, $10,000, but this month, right away, this month, or I owe payments that come to about $4,000. So what I really have is really 6,000, right? The rest doesn't belong to me because I have all these bills and payments that I have to pay. Okay. But if someone says, no, I don't do that, what I do is I just go open my bank account. I have only one account to make it easy for myself. I don't have multiple accounts. I look at whatever I have right now at this moment. Today is the 27th day. At this moment, what I have, and I pay that. And maybe a couple of hours later, maybe that amount may go down. I don't care. But I actually just pay 2.5% of whatever I have at that moment when I look at it. Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah accept from you if that's what you do. Do you have to pay zakat on a land that you inherited, especially if I do not use it for investment? No, you don't. You only pay if you sell it later, like when you sell it, right? Or if it's just a piece of land that you're not necessarily, you don't owe zakat on it, right? You do not owe zakat on it. Is it permissible to give zakat to the hospitals who treat patients? I don't believe so. The zakat has to be given to the individuals, to the recipients themselves, not to those who are rendering services, right? Then the recipient can take that and pay whatever they want. If they want to use it for medical treatment, that's fine. If they want to use it to get medication, that's fine. If they want to use it for whatever, but it's supposed to be given to the recipient, not to the individuals or the entities or the organizations that are rendering services to the recipients. I don't believe that they qualify to receive zakatul mal. If someone did not pay zakat for a few years, for multiple years, out of ignorance, they didn't know, what are they supposed to do? Inshallah, this is a very serious issue. I would love for this individual who asked this question, you can anonymously call me, inshallah, on this line, 901-444-0833, extension 104. 901-444-0833, extension 104. To discuss this further, inshallah ta'ala, because there are a couple of things that you may have to do, inshallah, if you have not paid zakat for multiple years, but at least go ahead and take care of this year. Go ahead and take care of whatever you own now. What you do about the previous years, we can discuss this offline, inshallah ta'ala. I would love for you to reach out inshallah ta'ala. Or if I'm not, maybe you're local, if you're not local, or if you have someone else within reach that you trust, a person of knowledge, you can call them and discuss this case with them. Jazakallahu khairan or jazakillahu khairan. I'm saving for my wedding. The money that I have set aside for that, do I have to pay zakat on it? If you want your wedding, inshallah, to be blessed, yes, you do have to pay zakat, inshallah. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless you with a righteous spouse if one hasn't come yet, and if one has already come and you're working on it, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your union and to bless your marriage and to bless your wedding. But whatever money you put aside for a rainy day or for whatever future project you have, you still have to pay zakah on it if you possess it, if you keep it for a whole year. So if you had that money for a whole year, right, then you pay zakat on it. If you haven't had it for a whole year, you're just starting to save, and a year hasn't come, and your wedding is before the end of the year, then you don't owe zakah, right? So let's say I want to get married, inshallah ta'ala. So let's say now, mashallah, people heard that I want to get married, and people, mashallah, want to help me, and they want to send gifts, inshallah ta'ala, on Eid. Those of you who want to do that, please let me know or reach out to me. I'll send you my account, inshallah ta'ala, or my address. So you can, So let's say people are sending me money. I'm collecting money now for my wedding, right? Because I want to get married. So let's say I'm collecting money right now, and that money reached the threshold, the minimum, right? Inshallah. So let's say I have $4,700 tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, that money becomes, starting tomorrow for a whole year, if I had it for a whole year, if I did not spend that money or whatever was added to it within a year, then yes, at the end of the year, I do pay zakah. I owe zakah on it, even if it's set aside for a specific project or for a specific event. Is zakah payable on child benefit one receives from government on a monthly basis, but saves it towards the future plans of the child? That's a very interesting question. And based on the school of fiqh, the school of jurisprudence that I follow, yes, indeed, if that money reaches the nisab, yes, you have to actually, you have to pay zakah on it. So it is, for a lack of a better term, zakatable or liable to zakat. If you have the quantum, if you have that threshold or minimum amount, no. If a person cannot afford to go to Hajj, are we allowed to pay their Hajj trip with zakat money? The short answer is no. Inshallah ta'ala. Obviously, my dear brothers and sisters, we have to think zakat is the minimum that you're supposed to give fi sabilillah, that you're supposed to contribute and give. It's really the portion that you have to give, right? But we need to think beyond the 2.5% fi sabilillah. Christians, our Christian neighbors, they do 10%. There are some groups that do more than that. There are people that do 20% of their income, not even of their and there are people who do that of their income before tax. They do 10% charity, alms giving before tax. Here we're saying that 2.5% of the saving, meaning after you take care of everything, your housing, your groceries, your car payments, entertainment, everything, right? The extra amount, that $10,000, $20,000 you're able to save at the end of the month. Especially if you don't end up putting all, your 19,500 extra money into your 401k, right? If you don't end up doing that, right? That extra money that you have, or even that which you put, that 2.5% of that, right? So you want to do more than that. fi sabilillah. We need to start giving and talking and encouraging one another to give sadaqat, sadaqah, right? Random acts of charity. We need to give, we need to learn this, and we need to teach this to our children as well, inshallah ta'ala. So give sadaqah if you want to support, and if you're wealthy and you have the money, you want to support someone to fulfill their dream to perform Hajj, yeah, that's fine. However, if they can't afford it, they're not obligated to actually perform Hajj, nor are you really obligated or to send them to Hajj. Like going to Hajj is not, it's just a wish. It's an obligation, but it's that if you're capable, if you have the financial and the physical ability, but it's not like, it's not necessarily So if someone comes and asks me, I have someone that really wants to go to Hajj, and then I have this person that wants to get married. Which one should I support? I would say support the person who wants to get married. Right? The person who needs to get married, and they have to get married. But the person who needs to or wants to go to Hajj, they don't have to go to Hajj. The wajib, they're not obligated to go to Hajj. They're exempt from it because they don't have the financial or the physical ability. But you cannot give the person out of your zakat. Now, if the person is poor, they're fuqara, they're miskeen, they don't have anything, and you give them the money, and instead of using it for their basic necessities, they decide to basically go to Hajj with it, then it's up to them. Right? But you can't give it to them and say you have to go to Hajj, or I'm paying for your Hajj trip, or here is a Hajj package that I bought you with my zakah money. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Is zakah required to be paid on private pension funds, which I do not have access to until I'm 55? The short answer is no. Pensions, you do not owe zakat on pensions or unvested options. You don't, right? Because if I tell you that inshallah come and volunteer in the masjid, okay? And if you continue to volunteer in the masjid for the next 3 years, after 3 years, inshallah, I'm going to give you a gift of $10,000. You don't, and you start working in the masjid for a whole year, right? You don't have the money yet. You are promised the money, or you have access to it. I have it set aside for you. Once you earn it and you keep it for a whole year, for a whole lunar year, then you have to pay zakah on it. But until you have access to it, right? Or until you actually possess it, or it's in your account, or it's under your name and you have access to it and you can actually cash it, or until you reach that qualifying age, you're not obligated, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Can we pay zakat money for masjid construction? Is someone trying to get me in trouble or what? No, inshallah, there's no trouble here. Ya jama'at al-khair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined, just like when it comes to inheritance, Allah has determined the recipients, right? And the amounts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allocated that and determined that. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. I personally do not find the construction of any masjid to be part of this, to belong to any of this. Now, someone might say, no, wait a minute. But we have certain areas, they desperately need a masjid, and having a masjid there is like fi sabilillah. Without that masjid, the Islam will not be established. They will not be able to function as Muslims. They need a masjid, and the role of the masjid is not just a place for them to get together and pray. It's actually beyond that. The masjid is going to be a center for them to do a lot of things. And if someone comes this and stretches the definition of fi sabilillah to cover that, to cover whatever role this particular institution or masjid is going to be playing in that area, right? Without which people are going to lose their deen and all of that. And someone is saying, maybe then, and if that's the case, then I don't see the whole amount of zakat being allocated to that. You can maybe give 12.5% of that, if that definition applies to the construction of this place or the masjid that you're talking about. But masajid, ya jama'at al-khair, as we said, my dear brothers and sisters, zakat is that portion of our wealth that we cut off and we get rid of to be able to purify our wealth. So it's like, some scholars refer to it as awsakh. It's like it's just like your body detox and get rid of toxins, right? It rids itself. The portion, the 2.5% that you're supposed to get rid of, that's what it is. In order for your wealth to thrive and to be purified and to grow, right? You get rid of that portion, right? You're supposed to do that. We need to honor the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not make them desperate enough to be dependent on that. If we only give 2.5% and only our zakat to build the masajid, what does that say about us? We need to honor the house. Allah Azza wa Jal says, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. Right? So they're supposed to be honored. Masajid are supposed to be, financed and supposed to be sustained from that, from the wealth that we have, not from the zakat. Right? It's supposed to be a gift. People used to compete in honoring the masajid of Allah, in building masajid, in decorating the masajid, and cleaning the masajid, and purifying them, and making them look good. Out of honor. This is a place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name is going to be celebrated, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be worshipped. You're building a house for Allah. You're building a house for Allah. You want to build a house for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your zakat? Come on. I just don't see that to be appropriate, to be honest with you. You're giving a gift in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. You're dedicating it for Allah Azza wa Jal. And you want to do that from your zakah? I just don't see, I can't really wrap my head around it. And again, I'm not subhanAllah scolding anyone or anything. I'm just saying that we need to change this attitude. Unfortunately, over the past decade or more, I've seen this becoming more of a phenomena. People just, zakat. I'm just gonna give from my zakah. Ya jama'ah. Okay, would you please state who and what is eligible for zakat? Meaning, okay, I thought I answered this question. I still see it here coming up. We said that in Surah At-Tawbah, Surah 9, Surah At-Tawbah, Surah 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the 8 categories. I'm going to give you the exact reference right now for those people who are asking. Yes.
I'm not sure which question you answered or not.
Oh, okay. طيب. Okay, Surah 9, verse 60. Surah 9, verse 60. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. Right? Sadaqat, or the zakat, is supposed to be given to al-fuqara, the poor, people who have nothing, absolutely nothing, they're completely broke. Wal-masakin, category number 2, the needy, people who have some income but they don't have enough. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, and those who collect the zakah, the people who process, or organizations that collect your zakah and process it, they can be included, or they can be given. And for them, I recommend, or I say that you can use 12.5% of whatever you collect, not all of it, because the other categories also have rights, and they have more rights as well. As a matter of fact, they have more rights. Number 4, وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, and those whose hearts are to be reconciled. In other words, people who have newly accepted Islam, people who are about to accept Islam, they have some financial need, we want to entice them, we want to basically motivate them, we want to sponsor them, that can be included in that category. وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, and to free captives or people who are indebted, or people who are, or slaves, right? To free people who are captives, وفي الرقاب, or slaves. Number وفي الرقاب والغارمين, and those who have debts, those who are overwhelmed with debts and they can't pay them and they are bankrupt. To save them from bankruptcy or from losing everything, we can support them. وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله, category number 7, and for the cause of Allah. And this is the category that some people are having loose definitions for. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. But anyways, وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and in the cause of Allah. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and for the wayfarer, a traveler who was stranded, who lost all of their possessions or their assets, they don't have enough money, they need to go back home. We can support them, we can give them from zakah funds to be able to make it back to their country or to their place of residence. Do I need to include my husband's debt when paying zakah if he does not have any savings but I do, and we have separate accounts and savings? I don't understand the question, but if you're saying, can you pay some of your husband's debts from your money? Yes, you can, right? Can you use your zakat to pay that? No. I don't see that as appropriate practice, right? But what you can do is, let's say you have $100,000, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. And your husband has debt of like $10,000. Now, on $100,000, you owe 2.5%, right? So you owe $2,500. $2,500. So, however, if you pay the $10,000 debt that if you pay it out of your, then you're going to go down to $90,000. You're obviously not going to owe $2,500. So what I'm saying is the zakah amount that you have to pay will go down, right? Because now your total amount goes down. You get a little break, but you also pay off your husband's debt. It will be considered, inshallah ta'ala, as a contribution, a good gesture, hadiyah, a gift from you to him. It will be considered a sadaqah, a sadaqah in the broader sense of sadaqah, not zakah. But I don't see this as appropriate practice for the zakah to be paid towards the debt of your spouse. Now, unless your spouse is like completely broke, has nothing, and they're at the risk of like declaring bankruptcy. I mean, again, these kind of special circumstances, I urge people to seek special fatwa and to reach out to their local trusted religious authority on these kind of cases. Do I need to pay zakah on stocks if I am not liquidating them? Yes, because you own them and they have an actual value. So you look at of course there are differences of opinions as what value do you pay on liquidation or no, but wallahu ta'ala alam, what you need to do is you look at the current market value. So let's say your zakah is due tomorrow. Tomorrow you go check into your account, you see whatever net value you have, after the realized and the unrealized gains and all of that, right? Whatever net value, if you were to sell them off today or tomorrow, if you were to sell them off, how much are you going to end up with? That is the amount that you have, that you owe zakah on, right? Of course, obviously, you can always deduct the fees or the whatever fees you have. Also, if there are any possible capital gain taxes that you may own if you were to liquidate, you can also deduct that as well and give on the net amount that you're going to end up with, that you're going to take home if you were to liquidate. Can you give your zakat to your brother or your sister if they are among the miskeen or the fuqara categories. It depends on which school of fiqh you follow. If you're asking me, it seems to be permissible for you, and some scholars consider it to be, inshallah, even a source of or a form of sila, a form of showing kindness to your relatives, and that you're going to get extra reward, inshallah ta'ala. It gets tricky if they're not local. Again, if you're earning here locally, you're making money here. You have a business here, or you're working here, you're earning money here, your saving is here, and you have money, but then you have a sibling overseas who is desperate, right? What are you supposed to do? What I tell people in this case is, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me if I'm wrong, what I tell people is that give them some and distribute some locally, right? You don't want to deprive them, especially if you're the only source of support that they have. However, my dear brothers and sisters, when I ask my teachers this question, wallahi, one of my teachers one time, when I asked this question, that he said, how could you do that to your, again, given that you have the money, given that you have, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, zakat is not something that we give to people that we want to honor. Zakat is a haqq that belongs to the faqir or the miskeen. But someone who, our siblings, we're supposed to really show as much kindness as we can to them and honor them and give them something that is beyond the zakat. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, but this is just my opinion and my advice, right? It's not nice for me to say to my sibling, here's my zakat. Take care of, you use it. Zakat is something that we give to a total stranger, right? Because it's their haqq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it haqq for them. As for our relatives, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haqq for them is for us to support them with dua, with wealth, emotionally, in every fashion. Like as ourselves, we're supposed to treat them like we treat ourselves. So what I say is do your best. You may give them some, if you have very limited resources, you may give them some, but you're supposed to give them a gift beyond the zakah, your relatives, your uncles, your aunts, your siblings, right? It's supposed to be a hadiyah, a gift, right? Gifted to them, and Allah will still reward you for it. Allah will reward you for it. You will be immensely rewarded for it. You will be double rewarded for it. But it should be, we should honor them to the best of our abilities. Okay, I answered that question. I did not pay zakah on stocks for the last few years as I did not know. What can I do now? Again, reach out to me, inshallah. What you need to do, take care of this year's as soon as possible. You can, inshallah, call me, contact me so we can discuss this. If I'm not your local, imam, or if you can't reach me, or if you have someone who is more knowledgeable locally or somewhere else, please contact your local imam ASAP. Discuss this case with them and get an answer. My number again is 901-444-0833, extension 104. I'll be available starting tomorrow between 4 and 5, inshallah ta'ala, for the next 3 days, inshallah. For the next 4 days, sorry. From Monday until Thursday, inshallah. For the next 4 days, inshallah ta'ala, to answer any questions regarding fasting, regarding zakatul fitr, zakatul mal, anything related to these subjects that are on the minds of many of our community members. So if you have a special case, or if you have any follow-up, or if I did not answer your question, because some of the questions were erased by our technical support here, by our tech support, that I may have not read accidentally. So if your question was not answered, if your concern was not addressed, please reach out, inshallah ta'ala. I really appreciate the enthusiasm, and I appreciate the participation and the zeal that people have to learn about their deen. I'm completely, subhanallah, blown away and really impressed, and I'm very thankful. This is a good sign. The fact that people are actually wanting to know what they owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what they owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. The fact that they want to know this, and the fact that they want to fulfill their obligations, wallahi, it's a good sign. And inshallah ta'ala, I hope that it will qualify us to receive mercy from Allah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will relieve us from these situations and these predicaments and circumstances that we're in right now. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to lift, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to lift any burden of us or humanity. Wallahi, my dear brothers and sisters, if the wealthy Muslims, forget about the governments, if the wealthy Muslims of the world fulfill their 2.5% obligation zakah, we will be in matter of few years. I remember 15 years ago, I did some research, right? We would be able to eradicate poverty of the face of this planet. We will be able to take people from poverty and make them independent, financially independent. And not only Muslims, but everyone. Just if the wealthy Muslims fulfilled their obligation, forget about the Jews and the Christians and paying 10% or, right? If our sadaqat and zakat were processed properly and they were not abused, we'll be able to wipe out poverty of the face of this planet. So, وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. The reason there are people dying of hunger-related causes and the reason there are homeless people is because the wealthy we're not fulfilling our obligation towards them. Someone is failing in fulfilling their obligation. Someone. So, and inshallah, so that we can relieve ourselves from this collective failure, right? Then as individuals, we have to do our best and we have to go above and beyond to fulfill our part. And Allah Azza wa Jal says that those who hoard gold and silver, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَها فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and they do not spend it in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Give them glad tidings of a painful punishment on the day of judgment. يَوْمَ يُحْمَى عَلَيْهَا. It will be brought and it will be made into plates and it will be heated and they will be ironed and burnt with it. يوم يحمى عليها والعياذ بالله يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم. This is what you have been hoarding. فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون. And get a taste of what you have been saving or what you have been hoarding. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises. Those who withhold their zakah, we ask Allah not to be of them, so we can at least do our part and fulfill. Jazakumullahu khairan. Continue this. One last question and we will conclude inshallah. Can you give Eidiyah? Can you give Eidiyah is basically Arabic word for Eid, gift, or Eidi in Urdu, right? Can you give Eidi or Eidiyah to a niece that is needy as part of your zakat or sadaqah? I'm totally confused because Eidi or Eidiyah is supposed to be a gift, a Eid gift that you give, not zakat or sadaqah. So, unless the person is really confusing the person is asking about zakatul fitr. Zakatul fitr is again food that you're supposed to be, during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was given out as food item, right? Like grain of, wheat or something, right? Or dates or tamar or raisins, right? Whatever. So now we basically calculate what that would cost now, right? And we collect the cash and we give it to organizations or individuals that will be able to secure these type of food items for the needy families or individuals, right? So that's zakatul fitr, and that is something that you have to pay on your behalf and on behalf of every member of your household at the end of the month of Ramadan, right? Eidiyah, my understanding, Eidiyah, this ancient practice that I personally miss, right, is when your father, your mother, your uncle, your older sibling, basically whoever has income, they come and they start giving you like $5, $10, $20, whatever. Right? On the day of Eid, we give it to the children to cheer them up, to excite them about Eid as a gift, Eid gift. You collect that money and you buy a toy with it, or you basically use it to whatever, right? To buy a computer or something like that. But it's really like an Eid gift, right? So this is my understanding of Eidiyah, and that gift is not supposed to come as a form of sadaqah or come out of zakat. That's not what zakat is meant for. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. I hope this answers the question. I hope this answers all of the questions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me for any shortcomings or any mistakes that I may have made. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك تبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.